Where does mental illness begin? Does anyone know? Big studies about this, and even the entire Sunnah supports this. But those of you who study the seerah, the biography of the Prophet ﷺ, you will see through his actions, just by working it out, where does the likelihood of mental illness, trauma start in a person? If a person grew up with this, where do you think it all started? In their childhood. Most of it is in the childhood. The childhood. Now the studies have mounted more and more and more. It's established. Most of it starts in childhood. How? How? And why? Have you heard of a term called neuroplasticity? Yes? Hands up if you heard of, or it's also called brain plasticity. Yes, some of you, well done, mashallah. Literally, brothers and sisters, the brain that you and I have control over changing it in the way we want. It's not an easy task, but we can. And you can teach your children that they are able to change their brains. Just give them the example of Legos. You can build the Legos, dismantle the Legos, rebuild them in a different way, change parts of it here, like Legos, like blocks of Legos. Our brain is. Right inside there are little tiny channels. Alright? Neurons connect to other neurons. Allahu Alam, 30 billion, 300 billion, I don't know, many billions of neurons. They connect and they make highways and roads. And they grow. Like these little roots, they grow. And they make new bridges and connections. When you develop habits, these channels grow. Develop other habits, these channels grow. You stop certain habits, the channels get less, other channels grow. Your brain gets rewired every time. It's a beautiful study. And Allah, He tells us that in the Quran. He tells us that we are responsible for what our brains decide. But the ones we're responsible for is the one right at the front of our brain, not the rest of our brain. Does anyone know at what age the child's brain is almost fully complete, close to adulthood? At what age do you think it's almost fully complete? 7? Okay, good. About, as modern studies tell us, about 6. Could be 7, around that age. It's true. That means the way the child grew up with their parents and their environment and their experiences, there are those channels in the brain have already been set at 6 or 7 years old. After that, the brain starts developing in a different way. And when you reach puberty, guess what starts to develop in your brain? The front part of your brain. Anyone know the name of the front part of the brain that develops after puberty? Prefrontal cortex. That keeps growing until about 25 years old. That's the place responsible for judgment, decision making, fears, and so on and so forth. Rationale and all that, making decisions through it. Allah says in the Quran, كَلَّا لَإِن لَّمْ يَنْتَهِ لَنَسْفَعًا بِالنَّاصِيَةِ نَاصِيَةٍ كَاذِبَةٍ خَاطِئَةٍ. Nay, if he does not desist from his oppressive and wrong actions, he's talking about Abu Jahl, but in general to all of us, the human who oppresses and does wrong, we shall take him by his forelock on the day of judgment, a lying, sinful forelock. Forelock here is the frontal cortex responsible for decisions. Allah called it lying and sinful because we have control over that. Now what affects that? Our brain development. Now when you understand this, brothers and sisters, you have a bit more empathy on yourself. You say to yourself, subhanallah, my upbringing was a little bit like this and like that. Can I change it? Yes, inshallah you can.